And you know what? I don't think we've ever had this many people sitting down to share a meal together. So that's an achievement in itself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda Husselman, and I farm at Temple Peak with Huss.
That's not all.
Yeah, well, that's another story, Pat. I'm a relatively recent arrival. I drifted up to the head of the lake 31 years ago. But there's one thing that I discovered really early on, is that I love the place and I love the people. And that's what we're here to celebrate tonight. Whether you once lived or worked here, we wouldn't have got there without everyone's help. Now we've got a great program lined up for you tonight of all homegrown talent. But before we go any further, I would like the committee to stand up and take a bow. It really has been a tinsy-wincy bit of work, but I think we're all so proud of the wonderful occasion that's become of it all. So that's fantastic. Now, to get this show underway, I would like to welcome to the stage the fantastic Glenorchy school children. Now they've got a marvellous recitation for you, and you will find the words inside your program. So for those of you who have remembered your reading glasses, you will actually be able to follow along. So welcome to everybody, and we'll get the evening underway.
Years ago, came hardy young folk with green
Right, because we have a stunning team of international judges. And our last judge, with a wonderful eye for clothing, is Tony Stoddart. But I'll hand over to Tony, who's got all the results.
Celebrations. We thank everybody for the effort put into the address tonight. This has made it judging quite difficult and challenging for us, the three of us. We would now like to present awards for the best dressed in 5 categories.
The award for the best dressed lady is Jenny Davis. Worked very hard. You do. Thank you, Marin. I'm offended.
Now the award for the best dressed gentleman is Toby Boyle. Now the award for the best dressed couple is
Willie and Serene McBeal.
Very hard job for the judges, but wonderful choice, and it's great to see everyone making such a fantastic effort. Thank you. jokers arrived on New Zealand shores. In those rum old days, there was only one way to New Zealand and one way out.
The Maoris, Brazilians and Chinese, but more than half the refugees beneath the Kauri tree. And the battle along the hut and the song of the lake they call in vain. Around the horn and home again. Cut down trees, I skip and jump, I like to press wildflowers. I put on a woman's clothing and hang around in bars. He's okay, he's okay. He sits all night and he works all day. He's okay, he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
That's the law.
Very tough act to follow. When the war broke out, many of our menfolk enlisted. Rita and Betty Groves of Rootburn Station and Betty Shaw of Elfin Bay had to take over their work, and their memoirs make for amazing reading. Rita recalls, our truck and horses weren't commandeered because they were really too isolated for the Army to transport them after we joined the Land Service, and there were no visits from the Manpower Office staff to see if we were still alive.
Tommy Thompson and Watty Watson both saw active service in World War II. Watty joined the Navy, and after a short stint in Auckland, he was posted to the Russell Islands in the Pacific, where his ship was mostly involved with patrol work. Watty was back in Auckland and on duty when peace was declared in the early hours of the morning. He remembers having to wait until 6 a.m. to tell everyone by loudspeaker, "The war is over. Did you hear that? The war is over." Later on, they were all given shore leave after a couple of good shots of rum. Watty remembers that there was no traffic on Queen Street because people filled the streets, and some of the pubs ran out of beer. Some of us knew where the brewery was, though. Tommy was working in Malaya at the start of World War II, and he joined the Federated Malay States Volunteer Force. They fought against the Japanese invasion and ended up on an outer island in Singapore Harbour when the Allies surrendered. Tommy and 6 mates managed to escape in a Malay canoe and headed for the horizon, never knowing when they would be attacked. They managed to acquire a larger boat from some locals, about the size of a lifeboat on the Earnslaw. Tommy remembers that some of our members were pretty good at sailing boats, and it was a marvellous experience bowling along with a sail-up. We were our own bosses. They eventually reached and crossed Sumatra to Padang, where they were evacuated by an Aussie warship to Colombo in Sri Lanka. He finally arrived home in April 1942 via Fremantle, Adelaide and Wellington, only to discover that the British government was desperate for New Zealand scheelite and he was sent to Glenorchy to draw plans of the mines.
Meanwhile, while Tommy was bowling along the waves, up the reefs, Doug Scott once mustered the whole place for the autumn muster by himself due to the lack of available manpower because of the war. It took him a month to gather in all the sheep on his own, with multiple days on the same spur bringing them in. Sorry about that. In the 1960s in Glenorchy were the era of rugby, racing, roads and power. The Lakeside Rugby Club was formed in 1961 and they organised the first race day in 1962, which has been an annual event ever since. The team would travel down to Queenstown by launch and included a well-known crew of Russell Reid, who's here tonight, Dick Watson, Jeffrey Thompson, Robert Key, Waddy Watson, Mick Smith, Jim Turnbull, Jim Vent, Pat Gollop and George Reid. Ian Kirkland remembers that half the Wakatip team came from Glenorchy. More lakeside games were played in Glenorchy than away because other teams liked to visit. Kirky can well remember one memorable game which was played in midwinter. Since the rec ground was so snowy, we made a temporary pitch up at the airstrip, which was bloody terrible because of all the little bits of broom sticking through. And apparently Russell Reid played in his underpants. And 2 players were injured and had to be flown directly from the airstrip to hospital.
What a lot of bullshit. A lot of bullshit.
Oh, don't be some miserable.
Yes. No, maybe. The Glenorchy Road opened officially in November 1962, thanks to the driving energy of Tommy Thompson and the hard work of Laurie Smith and his sons Rolly, Michael, and Ivan, as well as Daryl McGregor, Norrie Groves, Graham Railton, Brian Aiken, and others. The road was opened during the centennial celebrations with great fanfare and many hairy bearded men on hand. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Visits, but the telephone exchange was still the nerve centre of the district. You young folks might think that iPods, smartphones and the internet are all modern inventions, but all those services were right here. You could find out absolutely anything at any time. And it was all completely confidential.
What's this going to be all about?
I wonder.
You're talking about you for sure, aren't they?
Eh?
You're talking about you, I'd say.
Why?
You used to walk up here.
Anyway, back in the day, we all had party lines and it was our job to connect everyone's phone calls. But that wasn't all we did. People would ring up with all sorts of queries like, how do you preserve fruit? What time is it? Do you know where so-and-so is? I even got rung one day to see how to spell banana. And that person is sitting in the room.
What was that?
Do you know where my husband is? May I get tricky? Be 100% honest.
Gail, actually.
Gail.
Yeah, I think so.
It took quite a while to be connected to some places.
Brian Ahern was another favourite who arrived with the hut takings and he just tipped them all out onto the counter. We encouraged him to put them in bags of $20 and he did that, but with coins of different denominations.
We always used to open after hours for Mick to put bait on the horses, and he was supposed to pay a reopening fee, but he set up an account for us at the TAB and made bets for us and tickets, and that worked alright. I don't remember us winning much money though.
On Fridays we had to polish the connections with Brasso so everybody got good reception. If I was working that night, John would drop the 3 kids off on his way to the pub after asking for money too. No EFTPOS or credit cards then.
Friday night was blokes' night at the pub, and us girls weren't allowed to go, but well, they said we weren't, but Mary and I used to like going just to stir the Duke up. And no, we had some good nights. Another thing I remember that's quite appropriate considering she's wearing a wedding dress tonight was Carol McGregor after her second wedding anniversary saying, I don't know which year was the worst. But anyway, Carol, we wish you well for your new marriage next year. We were supposed to lock everything in a big chub safe at night. During the day we kept things in a little tin safe, and one night we actually had a robbery. Someone snuck in through a side window, unlocked the snub in the front door and dragged the big safe out and away. They only got about $30 though and a few stamps because I'd left today's takings in the tin safe. That was about $500.
New Year's Eve was a big thing in those days, and there would be a big dance at the hall. The pub would encourage everyone to go down to the hall before midnight. No alcohol was allowed though. It was all in the boots of the cars. Everyone made it inside the hall for the kissing at midnight.
Then after the dance, the first footing would start. We'd pile into cars and head out to Thompson's, where Rita always put on a huge spread. We would eat up there and then head up the valley to Mbits. The place was always in darkness, but after a couple of songs by the crowd, the lights would go on and there would be another huge feed. After that it was Charlie Hems at Dart Valley, and then after the bridge opened in '74 we'd go to Hamilton's at Rootburn, Bryant's at Kinloch, and then to Mick and Nan's at Mid River. We'd go to Temple Peak, Rathwell and Elsie's, East Valley, then finally we'd end up back in Glenorchy about breakfast time.
The post office was the centre of the community, and everyone was always dropping in. In winter we'd have a fire behind the counter. Saturday was officially closed, but we still had to do the phones, and people would pop in for a yarn. But it all came to an end in 1987 when we got a 24-hour service to Queenstown via a microwave link, and the post office side of things went over the road to the garage. It was a great era.
We'd like to remember some of the other ex-employees, one or two who are here tonight. Was Pam Gollop, Donna Harris, Marion Douglas, Karen Smith, sorry Karen, I don't know your married name. And we'd also like to remember the ones no longer with us, Glenda McGregor, Yvonne Thompson and Sue McCauley. Thank you and good night.
Change for Glenorchy. The gossip network came to a grinding halt when the phone exchange and the bank were all closed. But we gained takeaway fish and chips, push-button phones, TV2, and a new level of interest in horticulture, as rotary hose became the new boating accessory. The school roll dropped to the point that the school became a sole charge single classroom outfit, and the women's division branch went into recess. The 1980s were a hard time for rural areas with the end of SMPs, and communities across New Zealand were suffering. Lotto arrived on the scene and Tiger Watson saved the school when he arrived back in the district with Jenny and her 10 children. Most of you know the history since then, and we couldn't resist playing you this song to acknowledge our new film star status.
Now you'll find the words for the last song inside your program. So if you can still see, you can get ready. But first, I would like
We actually don't know the other songs.